mind. Good morning again, everybody. I hope you are doing very well. So today I am going to be talking about diarrhea and vomiting, or as in the profession we say D and V. The medical profession refer to it as gastroenteritis. Now, gastroenteritis is quite a common thing that we find in our babies, and it is caused by a bacterial infection or a viral infection. Now, I'll talk about the difference between the two because the management is slightly different. Now, a bacterial infection will require antibiotics for your baby to get better, and they will be showing obvious signs of being unwell, like a high temperature. They will be off form, they will be irritable and crying, and they will be sleeping a lot. And if they have signs of this, then it's really important that you take them to your GP because they will need antibiotics to be able to get rid of that infection. Now, a viral infection is much longer in duration, and it doesn't respond to antibiotics, but they can be quite virulent. And the two that spring to mind are norovirus and rotavirus. And we see these much more in children in hospital, and they're particularly nasty, and they are quite contagious. So let's talk about vomiting first. Now, it's really important that we know the definition of vomiting. So it is not when your baby posits or regurgitates after a feed. That is quite normal because the opening to the stomach is quite floppy when your baby is younger, and it kind of flaps a little bit up and down. So when your baby burps, some of the contents of the stomach will be expelled, a teaspoon or two, and it will come out on their bib or their clothing, and that's absolutely fine. It's nothing to worry about. Now, with vomiting, that's a whole different ball game. Vomiting is when the entire contents of the stomach is expelled and it comes out either on the clothing or onto a puddle on the floor. That's much more serious because, of course, your baby is losing all of their calories and they are losing their fluids, and this really does need to be replaced. So if you are a breastfeeding mum, you just continue to breastfeed. That's absolutely vital because your breast milk will contain vital antibodies that will help fight against the infection that your baby has picked up. If you are a bottle feeding parent, then the new thinking is that you continue to bottle feed and you replace the fluid that is being lost. So how do you replace this fluid? Well, you can either give cool boiled water to rehydrate your baby, but I would recommend that you use a rehydrate solution, and you get these from the pharmacy over the counter, and it's called diarrhea. Now, diarrhea is a special mixture of water, sugar and salt that is made up to replace the urea and electrolytes that your baby has lost through the vomiting. Now, vomiting should only last for up to 48 hours, really, and then it should subside. But during this time, just treat the symptoms, give your baby lots of cuddles, lots of reassurance, and replace the fluid that is being lost with the rehydrate solution. You just make it up with cool boiled water up to 200 mils and give it in short, frequent episodes to try and keep your baby topped up. Now, if your baby is showing any signs of dehydration, it's really important that you take some action on this. And I did talk about the signs of dehydration in a previous live, but just to remind you, they are when the fontanelle or soft spot becomes sunken, when the eyes are sunken back in the head, when the skin is dry and the lips are chapped looking. But the clearest sign really is decreased urinary output. And these are signs that your baby are quite severely dehydrated, really, and you need to take action and go and see a GP. Now, I just wanted to talk about a condition that's quite rare, so please don't worry, but it is something that we see in babies, small babies before 6 weeks really, where they have projectile vomiting. And projectile vomiting means that it's flying across the room and it's coming out under force. And this condition is called pyloric stenosis. It's where that little flap I told you about is not working properly, and your baby will continue to vomit. So if your baby's vomiting hasn't subsided after about 48 hours and you have this projectile vomiting going on, then you really do need to see your GP and get that looked into. Okay, so let's move on to diarrhea. Okay, so what is it? What's the definition? So lots of breastfed babies get very loose, creamy stools. That's not diarrhea, that's really normal and it looks like mustard. But when I talk about diarrhea, I'm talking about watery stools that are really soaking into the nappy. Now, if you have 3 of these a day, that's classified as mild diarrhea. But if you're having up to 10 of those a day, that is severe diarrhea, and that is when it can lead to dehydration. So watch out for those signs that I talked about earlier on. Now, gastroenteritis is caused by a bacteria or a virus, as I said. Now, the most common ones that we find in children are called rotavirus or norovirus, and they are particularly nasty in children, and many of these children need to be hospitalized because they do get so dehydrated that they will need to have intravenous fluids. It is a fairly common condition, so if your baby has prolonged diarrhea, really important that you go and see the GP. Now, the GP will take a stool sample and he'll test it, because some gastroenteritis diarrhea are caused by a bacteria, and your baby will need antibiotics for them to be treated. So if your baby becomes unwell and they have signs of a high temperature, they're irritable, off food, sleeping a lot, that's more likely to be caused by a bacterial infection. Okay, now there are other reasons why your baby will have vomiting, and they can be down to things like an allergy. A cow's milk protein allergy is very common, and it can also be down to intolerances, and lactose intolerance is very common. So tomorrow I am going to talk about both of these things. So until then, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and have a great day. Happy parenting, everybody. Bye bye.